Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Meconoman at YouTube with another 3D printing video. One we haven't had for a long time and they're definitely coming back. I've bought the SparkMaker SLA 3D printer, the one that takes a resin. This was a Kickstarter Indiegogo campaign a long time ago and aimed to be the cheapest on the market. Many are in their thousands. Though I've just learned that there's a few that are under the $1,000 mark. This is one of them. What makes it different to the others is it goes to the cheapest components as well as materials to make it up. We're going to pull it apart and have a go. I'm going to be brutally honest with this review. Many have stated bad things or poor experiences with this machine. Everybody else claims it produces good prints, though the structure of it is questionable. Ideally, you buy it, you open it, if it powers up and does a print, you're good to go as far as you can. That's what I did. If it doesn't work straight out of the box, that's where warranty, money back guarantee, all that sort of stuff comes into play. Got it off eBay from a reputable seller, paid PayPal, there was no problems, and if there was, it would have just been time wasted, and that's all. Now, notations and what it comes with. The instructions are very, very simple. Pictorial and basic instructions. It's enough to fill up the tank, level it, all that sort of thing. Get you ready to print. What it does not cover is it does not come with resin. It needs an SD card and software to drive it. It doesn't actually connect to your computer, but rather you have to preload everything on an SD card and stick it in the machine. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's called SparkMaker. I've downloaded it. Touch of trouble. Needs Windows 7 and up, so my ancient machine could not handle it. We'll get a model in there and add supports. Had a little problem with the software. Spark Studio 2.1 wouldn't really work or accept the model, so I rolled back to 1.9. Seems to be doing alright, though Windows 10 doesn't care for it too much. Hoping future updates will iron out a lot of that sort of thing. It's taking the STL file, put the supports, sliced it all up. This isn't really a tutorial video. There are a lot of videos on the SparkMaker explaining exactly what you have to do, how to set it up, how to get around the manufacturer's notes and instructions. It just says nothing about the software. It's been a few hours of tinkering and looking at Reddit and whatnot, trying to join the Facebook group. No luck there yet, though. Could be very helpful later. It's working now. Once it's done slicing, we need to save the file in WoW as print and chuck it in the machine and do the rest of the setting up. While we are waiting for the layering and saving, going to crack open the box. Fairly impressed with how it's stored and shipped in the circular foam. The main unit is wrapped up, a small box and an American cable. Small bag of components were chucked on top of the foam. Not sure what it is, but be careful not to lose it. Variable power supply that takes 100-240 volts. Now, the resin reacts to UV, so generally having it sitting around during the day for a few hour print, something can go wrong. This red bubble prevents those harmful UV rays coming through. Generally you want that on during printing and it might cut the smell and all that sort of thing. We've got our bed here. According to the tutorials I saw, there are two screws that you can undo and remove. It has a film on the inside. Now the bed is raised up when you open it and the power supply in between. That's your bed, and we've got a bit of a foam insert and a bunch of tape. Once it's all removed, you fill up and ready to go. What's very important is the clear film inside is fault-free, spec-free, all that jazz. On tested when they got their high D version, there was some problems and it was taped down. However, this new one I got is practically flawless. When you go on eBay, you can buy one of these beds for about 30 US. once they start getting damaged and bung up. So that's good to know that that is a consumable. Underneath is the LCD screen, and we've got a motor driver to raise the bed up and down. Our front wheel button, SD goes there, and what is removable is our bed. Nice piece of solid aluminium, so it can take a bit of damage with scraping and removing the model, and a little bit of details there about make, websites, power ratings and whatnot. We've got it on with an Allen key, which we have to provide ourselves. We loosen the bed, so the bed's nice, loose and floppy. It's all on. We'll to push it if we were to print, but it would give us problems. As you turn it, we're able to level the bed. This is the calibration process, which we only have to do once. We keep pushing down to the lowest point where it's nice and leveled, and re-tighten it again. Take your time, no need to rush. There we go, it's going down, and we tighten. There we go, nice and tight. Finally got the software working. Very simple to use, though it's got absolutely great functions. You've got your usual scale, move, rotate look on the sides of the bed platform, which is located in the squares. Second step is adding your supports. It automatically generates, or you could do it yourself, which is a new function to me and normally only seen in expensive packages, so I'm excited to see that. And the third one is the extra settings. Now it's just told me that the estimated total print time is almost 6 hours. That's crazy, but it's going to be cool. It's Tachikoma, which a lot of you should be familiar with. A few notes I've learnt is you've got 3 basic settings, including materials. We're going for LCDT for your standard resin, and layers 0.05 mil, and the exposure time, especially with foreign resins, is recommended to be 15 seconds. Now this would really drag out the build make time, which is okay. I can let it just go off and do its own thing. So we'll continue the setup. This is very cool. It shows you the steps for all the different layers, that it's just half a micron pretty much, and as we go we can see things slowly growing, so that's very interesting. This is how it's gonna be built, and we'll speed that along and we can start to see it take shape, which is absolutely amazing. One of the biggest problems I had is I loaded this on an older laptop and it didn't quite have the processor drive or specs to handle something like this, so the STL file wouldn't load or output and process. You'll probably need a 64-bit machine, a desktop with probably decent enough of a grunt to play games and whatnot, and yeah, just avoid laptops in general. So we stick our SD card in with the print.wow folder. Just did a dry test to see if I'll accept the folder and do some UVing, and it is, so we'll turn it off, fill it up with resin and turn it back on. I've shook up the bottle really good, and going to pour these little shot glasses, 20 ml worth, 6 in to make it 120 ml. Just turned it on by pushing the green red button, and it's starting to go up and down and doing its thing. Recognizes the file, and supposedly fairly soon, or right now, we've got the UV going on. So the first layer is going to bake that on for a good minute to make sure we've got a nice founding base or raft support, and every other layer, be it a half a micron, is going to be baked or UV exposed for a good 15 seconds. We're going to put on our red container. This is so any ambient light going through is not going to disturb the resin. We'll come back in a little while. I've done a fair amount of research online, and the tank is fairly small. It does only take 120 ml before it overflows. Though what you can do is come back occasionally, and if it's going to be a humongous print, just pour in a little more resin as you go. Yeah, it's been slowly going up and down for a few hours like this. It's pretty interesting. And the plunger straight back in. It's going to do that a few hundred times. Slowly getting there, bit by bit. A few more hours to go. And our print looks pretty successful. Gonna undo the top and rinse them out. We've reclaimed a lot of it. It's a bit thick, so we will wipe this out in the cleaning emptying procedure. Used isopropyl alcohol, soaked out as much as the resin as I could with tissue, then sprayed it in there a little while, wiped it, did it a second time. I've also sprayed this a few times and wiped it down. Without the resin slime on it, you can tell that there is a tiny bit of stepping from the resolution. Nothing that a primer and buffing can't fix, but the detail is just absolutely crazy. Once you've made sure that you've got a working model, this printer works. So the reviews that I've seen are absolutely spot on. Pretty happy. A little more pushing to do, as well as tinkering. We did have a little lift off occur on the plate. Normally most people would put their resin model in a UV tank to harden. It's just a UV light in a clear tank. Or you can leave it out in the sun, use a UV torch. I'm just leaving it on the windowsill. A UV box is something I'll look into in the horizon in building. I left the Tachikoma on the windowsill, and it's still a bit velvety or soft to the touch. Now, a lot of people use UV tanks, professional or handmade, and a few use these nail salon UV lights. This used to belong to my mother. You would put acrylic UV sensitive lacquers on your nail, stick your hand in here, and after up to minutes or whatnot, it would harden your nails so it wouldn't chip over time. You can find these pretty cheap in various styles on eBay. Got the little guy in there, but the clearance of the roof is very, very short. I may disassemble this in future and create a larger container. We'll see what exposure does after a few minutes, half hour, few hours, and if it makes any difference on the density of the resin. That way I'll be able to do it more often. We only used nippers to remove the supports. The raft was very brittle, so it snapped easily. Quite a pain, so I could see the criticism of smaller supports is definitely ideal. It's so much easier to cut. I'll have to clean up the underside and I'll put it on its back inside the chamber. I've noticed on the top it doesn't feel as soft. It's quite rigid, it's quite hard. I feel that it can definitely be sanded and whatnot. Also, some of the steps have shrunk a bit and it feels smoother. A bit of a primer and a polish. It'll be very interesting to see if this can take a metallic coat or something on the lines of that. Cleaning it can be a bit of a mystery. So what I do is I tilt it to a side and scoop out as much as I can with a little shot glass. When it's as low as humanly possible, I dab them with toilet tissue and just soak as much as I can. And when there's virtually no liquid in there, I'll lightly coat the clear bit with the isopropyl and wipe it again. I'll get 2 wipes until it's nice and clean. The alcohol does a wonderful job of grouping the remnant of the resin together, and it just soaks up beautifully with the tissue. So cleanup is very easy. A lot of tissues are being used, but pretty satisfactory cleaning job. Don't forget to neglect the aluminium bed. Gave the little Tachikoma a bit of a scrub up with sandpaper, well, to the best of my ability. The bottom of it, which had all the supports, was quite rough, so we hit that with the 180, and everywhere else got the 200, or the flat surfaces, and finally the 150 to polish everything up. The steps are very, very tiny, so we didn't really sand for very long. We've just applied a few coats of primer via airbrush, a very thin one, and we're able to see the steps in the 3D printing process. By going on a bit thick and applying a few more coats, it has filled out quite nicely. It may require one more sanding and coat of a microfilling primer to get this absolutely nice and shiny. Overall, not too bad. The flat surfaces and the legs were slightly stepped, the finest of almost hair-like ribbing. Covered that in a watered down liquid putty, very, very thin dry brushed amount. Sanded it back with the primer on top, a little bit back to bare plastic, and just about to prime again. That tiny one level of buffing and polishing, and you could definitely compound polish it further if you wanted to. I'm not too fussed with this project as it's a test piece. Should be enough to have it at a polished scale model level. We'll paint it in metallics and see if any more of the stepping does appear. Gloss black for a metallic coat, and oof, I've got to say that probably one more round of light sanding and polishing, this would be absolutely perfect and up there with injection molding. We've painted in our metallics and it's still looking very good. Stepping's not seen. We'll do our hand painting. Roughly painted some detail on to capture the look, profile, proportions, all that sort of thing. This is our finished Tachikoma, all painted, weathered, bit of a sludge wash. Now the important thing with the application of the sludge wash is seeing any of the blackening or highlighting of stepping or imperfections in the print, and realistically the only detail that's popping is what's meant to be there, a part of the print, sculpture or 3D model. Now the paintwork's a bit rough. I've rushed it. If I allowed proper time curing and not touched it and all that, it would have polished a little nicer, and further polishing would have made a far better metallic model. All that set aside, very pleased with the finished look. It's the correct proportion, look, texture that I would expect from a metallic model, especially a little robot spider. So more or less my final thoughts on the SparkMaker, besides all the negative feedback that's been online. My experience has been very positive after doing a bit of research, playing and testing, which a lot of that is available to you guys through this video. It's not too difficult to operate for someone who's fairly new to 3D printing, and especially the whole DLP SLA process. It's very flexible for what resins go in. You can recycle or reuse resin. Going on to further discussions I've seen online, realistically, if you just keep it away from heat and direct sunlight, some people just like to leave the resin in the bed of the printer and just use it and turn it on after weeks or months of storage. I'm not happy with that, as it may leak into the machine. One guy reported as such and only really needed to clean it out, and it continued working. Not much can go wrong with this process besides the screen inside the bed dying, or the motor dying. So I'd say that this is a fairly safe investment to make, especially with parts being easily available from the SparkMaker manufacturer, and due to the price of the resin, the machine, everything else, it's a very good investment. Final tip that I've just learnt after making this video: when removing the resin from the tank, A large medical syringe for feeding or whatnot, 50 to 100 ml, is ideal for drawing out the resin and putting back in a bottle opposed to scooping or pouring out as I've done in the video. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. As always, until next time, stay tuned for further content. Definitely highly recommend this printer if you're designing your own stuff to add to models or your own standalone models, or if you want to look at the vast online CAD catalogs that are available on Thingaverse and other websites. See you later, and thank you.